welcome men to Men's Fraternity, being hosted by Celebration Church, Johannesburg. We have been on a journey where we are looking at authentic manhood. And in looking at authentic manhood, we're talking about how to win at home and at work. So in this session, we're going to look at how as men we can lead in financial matters. We can lead in matters concerning money in the home. So and this is an area that many people struggle with. Many couples argue the longest and they fight the most around the issues of money. And there's so many reasons why there are these fights and these challenges in terms of money. One reason is probably that we have very little training and knowledge about money and financial matters. We have not been exposed, we have not been taught, and very few schools will teach about money management. And at home, very few parents will teach about money management because they themselves have not been taught. So most men, we get into marriage, into these relationships, with very ill-equipped in terms of dealing with money. So we don't know how to deal with money. And some of us, we actually have an adverse relationship with money. We grew up where nobody talked about money. The parents did not talk about money. The home, if anybody talked about money, some of the things you'd hear is, money, what do you want, money? You think it grows on trees, and all those kinds of negative aspects of looking at money, and they affected us growing up. And so we come from different backgrounds, and particularly even as a couple, we have different perspectives about money, and that creates problems. So these issues of money, they create problems. So we argue about money. We also argue about money because really we have different personalities about money. Our relationship with money is different. You know, each person has a certain kind of relationship with money, and I want to just talk about these relationships. It's important for you to know your money personality, to know how you relate with money, because that affects your relationship with your wife or with your children. You want to be able to know the money personalities that you deal with. So there are 4 money personalities that I want to discuss, so that you identify yourself and you can manage yourself on the basis of knowing your relationship with money. So the first personality in terms of money is a hoarder, somebody who hoards, somebody who accumulates, who keeps, who will not spend. This person is they see money as a means to obtain security. They want to keep as much money as they have. They have a fear of losing money. They have a fear to say, their security is in money. So you're always saying, there's a rainy day, things are going to go worse. So you'd rather suffer today because you have more faith in a rainy day. You have more faith in a day of disaster. I'm not talking about people who are prudent, who manage money, who save, who invest. I'm talking about people who have this incredible fear that while they have money today, they can wake up and all the money is gone. They can wake up and so they're trying to, you are afraid that whatever no matter how much money you have as a hoarder, you are always afraid that one false move or an unexpected disaster happens and all the money is gone and everything is gone. Your future is bleak. It's the kind of people who stay around the book of Job, who are thinking, what, Job was doing very well. One day everything was wiped away. So your mindset is that you are a hoarder. You love balancing your checkbook. And you get fun out of it because you want to see the savings you have made. You are the person. There's a story that is told and told about a Zimbabwean guy who comes from Manicaland, Mwenyika, and this guy was telling his story. He says, we really spent some money. I left Harare on a bus. We got to this place, we stopped, and I bought it, and we went this, and we did this, and he was talking about how much money he spent and how he really had spent money. And he says, when I finally arrived home and I counted my money, I had spent 25 cents. And his friend says, Summers, you are a hoarder. I mean, when you are talking about spending, I thought you had spent $100 or something. You are talking 25 cents. So those are hoarders. They don't want to spend money. They would rather, if they are going to buy, they are going to look for a great bargain. They will go to town. They can drive all over town so that they can save 5 cents. And they may not even realize that the fuel and the time they are taking costs much more. So those are hoarders. It's a hoarder with somebody who is saying, I want to keep money. They just accumulate. They will not spend it. They can't take you. You can't go out to eat. You can't buy flowers. You can't have even a little bit of lightening. You don't lighten up. You don't spoil yourself. I was I grew up not exactly as a classic hoarder, but let me say a part-time hoarder. And I was thinking investments, I was thinking saving, and I would not use money, and I would say, and my wife comes from, is a free spirit, and she wants to have fun, she wants to enjoy life. And to me, every attempt to enjoy life was actually eroding our future. So we need to be careful. You need to loosen up. Don't be too difficult as a hoarder. Once you know, it may be you, it may be your spouse, but you need to know that personality. The second personality is a spender. A spender feels important, feels loved, feels validated when they are spending. You see, the inner voice says, I deserve this. I will not be denied anymore. I go for it. They will buy things for the sake of buying. The biggest spenders are status seekers. They buy to just show as a symbol of status, so that people will see that, I have extravagant possessions, because these speak to their self-worth. You see, whether they can afford it or not, they want those branded products. You mean that Louis Vuitton bag, and it doesn't matter even if they have 5 of them. I was seeing on lifestyles of billionaires. I was seeing this guy who bought these Maseratis, and he had 6 of them, exactly the same. The only thing that there was differences of color. There was a yellow, a brown, a black, a what, and I think they had 38 cars. This is somebody who is spending, and they want everybody to know the latest acquisition. They parade them. These are spenders. They're people who feel respected because of their possessions. But the Bible says that we must be careful. For a man's life, that is in Luke, a man's life does not consist in his possessions. You see, these people like to wow their friends with fabulous gifts by wowing them. But you see, when they wow them with their gorgeous home, their luxury cars, is even better. There's nothing wrong with having a beautiful home. I love spacious, luxurious living. I have no problem. And there's nothing wrong with having a luxury car. But the moment you are driven by those things, the moment you'd rather have those than assets, now you are spending because it validates you, and you want everybody to know you are already on Snapchat, you are on TikTok, you are everywhere. Every new acquisition you have to be seen. People have to notice. And how many people live on Facebook, they live on social media. Whatever they do, they go to a restaurant and they're showing, and they want people to see that it's the classy restaurant in town. These are spenders. So you need to know that personality. So if you are that kind of personality, it's important to be able to just get your spending under control. It's okay, you can spend money, you can do things, but at the same time, you must maintain certain limits. You must live according to a budget. It is important to do this. And I think, let me just take a detour here and say, most men, we actually blame our wives, and we say, what, the wives are the ones who are reckless spenders, and they do this, and they're always in the shopping mall, they're doing this and that and that. But when I did an analysis, first of my life and later of other men around me, I realized that while women generally, again, this is generalizing, while women generally frequent the shops, they buy low-item or low-cost items. They are not budget breakers. But most men, they don't go shopping. The moment a man goes shopping, he's going to bring a Mac, and he's going to and commits the family for 5 years to debt. But if a woman gets a credit, probably 1,000, 2,000 rand or 500 rand, and she feels like she has really spent. So when we talk about the spender, we are not talking about the frequency of going to the shop. We are talking about the big ticket items. We are talking about the propensity, the capacity to be, how much money you are spending regularly, and you are spending it mostly for status quo, to be seen, to kind of being in the same league with the Joneses. For you to be, you are competing, you are trying to create impressions. You are trying to live a certain lifestyle. So that's a spender. So we have a hoarder and we have a spender when we talk about personalities. Then we have an avoider. An avoider is a different kind of person. This is somebody who is not comfortable at all around the subject of money. They don't want to talk about money. They don't want to hear about the budget. They don't even know what is in their bank account. They will just use money. They become uncomfortable around money. The avoiders are people who see no evil, hear no evil in terms of managing their financial affairs. They don't manage their affairs at all, because they are people who are out there and they're saying, you know what, I don't even know how to do this, and I don't want to know this. And when it comes to financial decision making, you see, they will avoid the situation that requires the decision. They would rather move by, instead of making a decision whether to acquire something or not to acquire, they would rather leave it to itself. They don't even open their bills when their bills are sent. Their bills are not paid because they hesitate. They are afraid of even opening the bill to see how much it is. They are very uncomfortable thinking about money. To them, money is the source of all evil, and they try to avoid it. So these are avoiders. And if you are married to an avoider, or if you are an avoider, you are a difficult person to deal with, because in terms of finances, you don't want to talk about money. You ask about, there's fees are coming, and you are surprised when the school sends your child back home because you have not paid fees. And you are wondering, who did you think was going to pay the fees? Didn't you realize schools were opening? It didn't take you by surprise. You are aware of it. But they try to avoid any financial decisions. They don't want to talk about finances. So if you are an avoider, it's important to realize that every decision you make in life has financial consequences. The decision to avoid dealing with finances has financial consequences. You cannot run away from the impact of financial issues. So you must say to yourself, I need to think. I need to deal with this. You must face your fear and still deal with it. You must take up courses that talk about financial management. Go to seminars, read up, Google, go on YouTube, read about financial literacy. You see, your ignorance kills you. And your ignorance works against the financial health of your family. So it's important to make sure that you are not an avoider. The fourth personality is the money monk. The money monk is a person who, to them, handling money makes them feel like they're dirty. It makes them feel like money is seductive. These are people raised with deep religious and ungodly religious or political philosophies. They're the ones who, this side say, money is the root of all evil. And they don't want to hear about money. They would rather be poor. They think there is virtue, there is godliness in poverty. They pride themselves they're not having anything. Or if they are influenced by a political perspective, they grew up in a family where anybody who was rich was called a capitalist pig. Or they were told, you know what, all these people who are rich, they're people who they had to murder someone, or they had to use some tokoloshi or whatever they were using. And now, because of that perspective, this person doesn't even want to touch money. If they get into wealth of some sort, if they actually sabotage themselves because they have a subconscious system that works against prosperity, that works against success. And they make bad decisions. These are the kinds of people who, when they are about to be promoted, everybody is excited about them. They will make one foolish decision and the promotion goes. Or even if they were to get an inheritance, there are people who will say, they will try and go and spend it on, give it to the poor, give it to everyone else. They are very good with everyone else, but they will be suffering, and their family will be suffering. So that's a money mongo. You see, they believe that the desire for money chips away at people's moral values. They think that to desire to have sufficient is ungodly. So they try to avoid dealing with finances as much as possible. And like I said, when they have a windfall, they can't wait to get rid of it. They want to throw it away because it's like, when something dirty falls on your hands, you want to throw it away, you push it away, and you actually don't want to have anything. You don't want to be associated. You're uncomfortable among the rich. So those are the money personalities. The hoarder, the spender, the avoider, and the money mongo. And you need to be able to assess yourself and say, who am I? What is my wife? What is my spouse? How can we deal with these things? You can't avoid the issues. You have to deal with money. So you need to face the facts that, like I said, there are financial consequences to every decision. So you must be able to face the facts. Ephesians 4:25 says, therefore laying aside all falsehood, speak truth to one another. So you must be able to look at yourself, discuss money matters with your spouse. Know what you really spend and what you spend it on. Track your money. Understand the flow of your money. You can choose to budget your money, to track your money, and tell your money where to go. Or if you don't budget, if you are not thinking about money, and you are not telling your money where to go, your money will go and you are surprised where it went. And you're saying, we don't know, we had money. There was money in this house and money went away. What happened? Yeah, because it wasn't told where to go. If you don't control your money and you don't decide together as a couple, where you want your money to go before you spend it, you are going to be in trouble. So it's important for you to discuss, to communicate around finances and create a high-level budget. Amos 3:3 says, can two walk together unless they be agreed? Are you looking at the facts of your finances? Are you budgeting? And are you budgeting on the basis of the reality of what's there? And if you don't know anything, you can always ask others to help you. You can get external help to help you with the budgeting process. But these days, it's almost like you can Google anything up. You can attend a financial management seminar on YouTube. You can read around it. But it's important. What's important is to say this. As much as is possible, do not spend money that has not been pre-approved. Do not spend money, particularly meaningful money, that you have not budgeted. You need to think about your money. You need to budget. You need to tell it where to go. This is very important. And particularly in the world in which we live, you must also, one of the main things about money that causes problems in marriages is the issue of debt. You must be careful about debt. You must limit your debt. The Bible says in Proverbs 22:7, it says that the borrower is a servant or a slave to the lender. Whoever gives you money will control your destiny, will control your life. That's why even if you get a mortgage, and by the way, we do encourage mortgages. We do encourage you to borrow wisely. But They'll begin to put covenants and controls to say, you can't do this, you can't do this. So that's what the Bible is saying, that you become beholden to the one who gives you money. So you need to be careful. So you need to manage. And when we talk about debt, you need to think about debt. There is you look at debt in three categories. There is what I call good debt. I know that there are some believers who will say, no, you should never touch money. You should never touch debt, as a matter of fact. But I believe there is good debt, there's questionable debt, and there's ugly debt. You see, what is good debt? I believe that good debt is debt which can buy you an asset. If, for example, you qualify and you have handled your finances well as a couple, and you go to the bank and you say, we want to get a mortgage, you want a facility to be able to own a house. Like I said before, and I want to say again, there is no reason why any member of Celebration Church Johannesburg should not own a house of their own. Because the rentals you are paying are close to the mortgage you would pay for a similar house. So you need to be able to manage your finances well and be able to get good debt, because good debt is debt that actually appreciates in value, that buys an asset that appreciates in value. If you are buying a house, you are buying a property that appreciates in value, you say once you pay off, you actually see that the value has grown. That is good debt. If you get a business loan, particularly not only a brain-haired idea, but a credible idea, something that multiplies that money, that is good debt. So that we do encourage. Then there is questionable debt. Questionable debt is, we are saying questionable not because we're just saying it's on the borderline. It depends on how you manage your finances. This is where you're buying something that depreciates. For example, if you get a car loan, you know that when you buy a car, it starts losing value the moment you drive it out of the dealership. So there is a depreciation that happens. Of course, there are some economies like in Zimbabwe, for example, you find that you can buy a car and it actually appreciates in value. But those are some crazy economies. There are advantages also to crazy economies. But most economies, particularly here in South Africa, the moment you buy a car, it starts losing value. So you want to make sure that, so we say a loan to buy a car is a questionable loan. It's where it's debatable to say, is it a wise thing to do? If you are getting that loan because that car earns money for you, then that makes sense. If you are buying that loan and you have to have the car and you don't have the funds, what we would recommend is that instead of buying a brand new car, if you can barely afford, why not get a second hand? So you limit the questionable debts. There are other kinds, I'm not going to get into details, but I'm just giving an example to say that is a questionable loan that you need to be, a debt that you need to be careful about. Then the ugly debt, which we say you would say avoid them as much as possible. It's debt which you get, either, for example, credit card debt for consumer debt. If you are going to use debt for consumption purposes, and it becomes a lifestyle, you are going downhill. So it's important to avoid consumer debt. Or if you get consumer debt, what I would recommend is that make sure that you get just enough debt that you are able to pay off, if it's consumer debt, at the end of the month. Because if it builds up, it really destroys your wealth and it creates strife in the home. So it's important for you to understand that it's important how you handle your debt. So limit debt as much as possible. Communicate, talk about money, understand each other's personalities, and say, let's discuss this, and let's work through. Don't incur major expenses that are not discussed. And don't hide your spending patterns from your spouse. Is this making sense? Let me just talk. We can a little bit about budgeting. Now, there are so many formulas for budgeting, but I want to give a very easy, flexible budgeting process that I believe anybody and everybody can implement. So the real principle behind this is simply this. You must budget to live on 70 to 80% of your income. That's the bottom line. Because if you are going to create wealth, it means that, particularly as a head of the home, if you are going to create wealth, then you have a responsibility to create wealth to secure the family. If you are going to create wealth, it means you can't spend everything you get. If you spend everything you get, you are living on the edge, and that's not going to be healthy. Your bank balance should be growing, and for it to grow, it means you need to decide upfront to say that I am not going to use everything that I earn. And so you determine what is available income. I think I did explain some time ago, I think it was in the Victory Business Forum, I did explain the principle that expenses rise to the level of available income. Let me explain that. And that's a critical principle towards budgeting. You know, have you ever realized that if you get a salary increase, you'll enjoy the increase for a month or two. By the third month, that is not enough anymore. What has happened? It's not that the money has lost value. Of course, inflationary pressures are there, but that's not the point. The point is, the moment your available income rises, your expenses will also rise. Because expenses rise to the level of available income. Another example, if you look at if something happens, for example, during this COVID period, if you had a cut down on your salary, for example, and they told you, you know what, the company is not doing well and the salary, we are cutting down salaries by 10%. You'll struggle the first 4 or 5 months. By the 6th month or so, you find that, so by and by you can make do. What has happened? Your expenditure has shrunk to the available resources. Now, once you understand that principle to say that your expenditure rises or shrinks to the level of available resources, you can then make a decision a priori, upfront. You can make a decision that says, I'm going to live on 70 to 80% of my income. That is the money that's available. So you reduce your expenditure. You reduce what you do so that you have that cushion. So and I know you are asking, okay, if I'm going to live, I can barely make it on 100% of my salary, but you're telling me to live on 70%. You can. You can start by just reducing it in stages, but you can. There's a point in our lives when we had just gotten married, when I learned this principle, we started applying this principle. We got to a point in the 90s where actually we were living on 30% of our income, and we were investing and saving 70%. And yet we had a good life. Of course, at that time, our income was growing. We had just started our practice in the late 90s, actually, into the 2000s. And our practice was running very well, and we were making a lot of money. So, but the point is, you can live on a certain percentage of your income. So that's important. Now, somebody says, oh, what's happening with this difference? Well, if I'm living on 70 to 80%, what's happening with the difference? I believe you are a believer, and believers are taught to give. So I believe that your tithe, your 10%, is non-negotiable. So you remove it. You are not, as a family, you should actually make a decision. And this is one of the things, many men are not tithers. And they make it difficult, and the wives will come to pastors and say, you know what, I want to tithe, but my husband will not allow me to tithe. And the husband is a believer. And you violate spiritual protocol by doing that. But it's important to say, you know what, I honor God with my substance. And I make that, I know that when I give, and it shall be given to you. So I'm a charitable giver. I give. So I set aside my tithe, my 10%. And that's just the minimum. Then I set aside whatever percentage, say 5%, for your free will offerings when you give, because your tithing is just the basic minimum. So if 15% of your income becomes what you give to God, because the Bible says that let everyone give in proportion to how God has blessed him. So when you're budgeting, when you're giving is proportional, it's a percentage, that makes sense. So that takes care of 15%. Then you can leave 5 to 10% of your monthly income for savings and investment. Remember, the money that matters, when we define your wealth is the money that's left over when you have spent, at the end of the month, when you have met your disposable, your monthly expenditures. So you don't want to leave that, because that's the crux. That's what's going to take your children to school. That's what's going to help you achieve in life. So you want to be upfront and say, I am going to put aside this amount. So you put aside between 5 and 10%. You can start with as small as you can, and as you get comfortable, you begin to increase it and you go on. So the moment you do that, you will find that you have 75 to 80% as your disposable income. This is now what you put in for your other needs. And when you do that, you want to include the discretionary income, you want to include all your other things. I'm not going to break that down to say, you are the ones who know your needs. So you can break it down, but discuss it and agree. The key thing I want to say on that disposable income, it is important that particularly if you are couples and you are younger couples, you need to give each other some discretionary income that allows each person to be able to manage their own float. You think about it. I mean, if you live your life in such a way that everything is done together, every cent is accounted for together, your wife can't even spoil you. She can't even do you a surprise. You can't even surprise them because everything is controlled. So you need to allow a little bit of leeway. You need to be able to budget something that you can, that somebody is free to do. My own money that I can do with whatever I want to do with. So that's a very simplistic budget. Say, budget for your discretionary income to be between 70 to 80%. Make sure you pay your tithe, your 10%. Make sure you have a 5 to 10% investment. My ideal would be actually a 10%. 10% tithe, 10% investment, and 5% free will offering. So that is, and then the other you spend as you see fit. So as a man, how do you lead finances in the home? You must accept the responsibility for sound financial practices in your home, irrespective of whether you are the numbers person, the numbers conscious person. I mean, my wife keeps most of our banking details and she works with those finances and things. But I'm still responsible. I am the man. I lead the finances. When we sit and we discuss the budget and say what's going to be done, how it's going to be done, I am the one who is, I'm responsible. I take responsibility. When our budget goes wrong, I take responsibility. I don't blame him. The moment you take responsibility as a man for financial management in your house, it reduces stress and conflict between you and your wife. It draws your wife's respect and admiration. And it brings security to your wife. And that's a top feminine need. And it brings freedom to your marriage. But it requires that paradox principle. To live, you have to die a little every day. You are responsible and you take control. Remember, we are taught in majoring in men that maturity is not a matter of age, it's a matter of taking responsibility. So I am responsible as a man to manage the financial affairs of my house and to make sure that there is security, there is provision, and that the needs are taken care of. So I must make sure that I have provided for the future of my family. That is why you are putting aside money. That's why you are investing. That's why you are doing things. You are creating wealth that goes beyond your time. And then you want to make sure that as much as possible, create some certain insurance covers, your health insurance, your even life insurance to cushion them in the event of untimely death. You also need to leave a will that is clear, that it protects your family. Particularly as Africans, our families can really run roughshod over our wives. So it's important as a man to make sure that you secure a wife. And make sure that you keep growing in your understanding of finances. And today we are talking about very basic things. You need to read good books about finances, seek wise counsel, and fellowship with other men. If you study finances, understand finances. And that is important. Now, in the last 8 minutes, I want to just discuss another aspect. We talked about financial personalities. Now there's something else that helps you to remove conflict. It's understanding. We have heard about the people's love languages, but there is also a money language. Everybody has a money language. So you need to be able to understand the money language of your spouse so that you speak the same language. So understanding the financial languages of you will stop fights about money, and it leads to healthy discussions. It leads to understanding. The Bible says you must live with your wife according to understanding. It can also help you appreciate the fact that when you may be interpreting, what you may be interpreting as a financial weakness in your spouse may actually be a strength, or it may be their way of trying to express love. So again, there are 4 money languages that I want to discuss. And these kind of overlap with the personalities that we discussed. So the first money language is the driver. The driver is a person who equates money to success. Equates money to success. Having money protects against the fear of incompetence. Once they have money, they feel they are competent. They feel they are successful. They feel everything is flowing for them. And these drivers communicate love by showing what money has done to bless and improve the lives of those they love. These are the kinds of people who will say, you have everything you need. I take care of you. I do this. And they brag about what they are doing for their spouses and their children. And those are drivers. They equate money to success. But the greatest weakness with the drivers is that they are overly dependent on money for their self-esteem and their sense of significance. It's like once there are people, you can tell how they are doing, how their financial situation is doing by when their money is, when they're down on their money, they are difficult to live with, they're impossible, they feel deflated, they feel like they're useless, they feel like their sense of significance is gone. You can't build your sense of significance on finances, on money. God is your source of supply. So as a child of God, you must understand that my sense of significance is built on God. That's why Paul could say, I've learned to do without and I've learned to do with. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So you need to understand that money language. Because these people, they feel a strong sense of inadequacy when they lack money. And they also will tend to be very materialistic. So that's the driver. The second money language is the analytic. The analytic views money as a source of security to protect them from life's difficulties. They are very structured and very organized in their approach to money. They are most likely to establish a budget to stick to it. That's the kind of person that I was for years. They are well structured financially. They have very good long-term money planners. That they communicate money, their love by saving money. They're looking out for the future well-being of the interests of their loved ones. So they are thinking the future, but the danger is that sometimes they think the future so far in the future that they don't enjoy the moment. So those are analytics. So their weakness is that they tend to be unyielding and legalistic regarding budgeting and money issues. If I told you don't spend this money, don't spend, there is no grace, there is no leeway. People who are around analytics, they begin to feel like, I'm not as important as my money. I mean, I think about somebody, I think people were talking about divorce, and this guy was saying they were really wealthy, and he said, you know what, I'm going to make sure she walks away with nothing. And he made sure it happened. See, these analytics, they are very materialistic. They are very unyielding and legalistic. They won't let go of money. So you feel less important than the money if you are around an analytic. So analytics can unintentionally communicate disregard for the feeling of others because of their financial attitude. They are so committed. If you violate the budget, if you do things, it's like you have committed a cardinal sin. So those are the analytics. The fourth is the amiable. The amiables are people whose relationships and people are the focus of their financial desires. To the amiables, money means love and affection. A lack of money translates to an inability to demonstrate love to their loved ones. The amiables communicate love by sharing what they have with those around them, especially family and friends. They are blessing people. They are spending. I mean, my wife is an amiable. She's looking for opportunity to give. I mean, a friend will visit and they'll get a necklace. A friend will visit, they get a dress, and you say, oh, but you just bought that dress. It says, oh, you know, we had fun. We were talking, and they went through the wardrobe, and someone says, oh, I like that dress. I say, you can have it. Those are amiables. They love to share, and they are great. The weakness with amiables is that while they are generous and good-hearted, they are often poor money managers with most likely no financial planning and no long-range planning. They live for the moment. They just do. And the final money language is the expressive. To an expressive, money means acceptance. It purchases the respect and the admiration of others. It provides the basis of relationships with desirable people. And expressives communicate love by shopping, buying, spending to gain acceptance from a select group, their peers. This language can be used in a negative way to hide feelings of pain, insecurity, and incompetence. People will compensate for their insecurities by their shopping, and they're being expressive. They're showing, they overcompensate. Expressives can become overly dependent on money rather than on God to solve their problems and to calm their fears. So these are the money languages that are there, and you need to understand. I mean, take a good assessment of yourself. And once you understand that, you can communicate with your spouse much better because you understand where they're coming. You don't judge them because they have a different language. You learn to speak their language. You minister to them by speaking their language. So it's important to have open, honest communication about money. And you as a man, you should initiate that. So being able to understand how you and your partner react to money will allow you to speak openly and honestly while discussing finances. And it doesn't personalize. Understanding and validating your partner's money language can make it easier to come to agreements regarding your mutual financial decisions. So it's important as a man to lead in these discussions, to be able to communicate with your spouse, to be able to understand that money needs to be led. You don't have to avoid it. Understand your personality, understand your money language, and begin to communicate. And I hope that I've tried to be very brief and simple, and we can go into in-depth discussion as we go into the discussion session in just some 5 minutes. So we are going to post the link to our Zoom interactive session right now. Actually, it's being posted right now, and you can join us and we can have that further discussion. But I hope that this gives you perspective. We can go to great depth in terms of talking about leading money, but you as a husband, you are the head of the house. You are the provider. You need to see ahead and make provision and make arrangements for the family. So you need to lead money. You need to lead the discussions around money, and you need to understand how to honor God with your money, how to take care of your family, and how to enjoy your money. I trust that you found this this enjoyable. I trust that it's helping. So thank you so much, and God bless you. We meet again if you are offboarding right now. We meet again next month, same time, right here at Men's Fraternity. But if you are joining us in the interactive Zoom session where we can get to interact and discuss, then we'll meet you just in 2 minutes. Thank you so much, and God bless you. We'll see you again in just a bit. Thanks.